everything, perhaps, but let's focus a little bit about medicine in ancient Egypt, because the ancient Egyptians actually excelled in this regard, and they had a lot of secrets that were later revealed, and we are going to discuss this today with our guest today, Mr. Yasse Kamel, researcher in Egyptology. He has maybe some secrets to share with us. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning. Nice to see you.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Yasse. Mr. Yasse, to start with, how can we track back the history of the introduction of the medicine in ancient Egypt?
Well, in fact, we may be surprised to know that Egyptians had practiced medicine since 3000 BC. And just enough to look at the mummies that they came from ancient times. I mean, the oldest mummy goes back to 2800 BC, which reign of Zoser, the mummy of King Zoser, and seemed they practiced medicine and were aware of body anatomy from much earlier time than the dated mummy of Zoser. One of the kings, we think he practiced surgery, and maybe that would be a surprise, was King Jir, and he's from the first dynasty. Dates back, he lived and reigned in about 3000 BC, and he seemed to be aware of surgery and probably was educated with surgery. We found one of his votive and funeral labels carved in stone, shows exactly the oldest known tracheotomy surgery. It's a surgery done to the air passage to avoid choking. Someone just ate something that blocked his air passage and about to die. So the surgeon had to do an immediate action which drills through the throat, pierce the throat, and with a blade or something similar, and penetrates throat and saves the life of the person before choking to be effective. So that label in the Egyptian Museum is 3000 BC and shows in the top corner actually one of those surgeons is extending his forearm with that blade towards the air passage to save that person. And the same label, it shows a mummy is made. So it seems to be that they were aware of mummification and had mummification. Maybe the question is how they could be trusting, or how they would trust, that the embalming technique they made for the pharaoh would last for 3000 years. And how could they be that trustful? I mean, unless they could see and witness mummies are much older. I mean, to allow the surgeon to take the corpse of the pharaoh and make a mummy out of it. It means the pharaoh himself did witness a much older mummy that was already there, that made in the type of mummification advised by his surgeon.
That's a theory, but perhaps because the priests also played a role in this regard, and they trusted the priests, maybe
that's right. But how the priest would know? I mean, a scientist today, if you do a mummification today, like, of course, in the modern way, like Russia did, like rich United citizens, like Americans, you have no clue if this mummy type or mummification type or style you followed would be seen and would last for another millennia. How would you know? There's no witness to tell you he did well.
Yes.
So that Egyptian doctor who made mummification in 2800 BC had seen mummies already with information written that those mummies were made in such type of mummification.
Yes.
So he could convince the pharaoh that he knows well what to do.
Yes.
Indeed. What about the story of the most important doctor or during the time of the ancient Egyptian?
The most famous.
Exactly. If we just exclude kings. I mean, I said King Jir was the first that practiced surgery. We have to start by Imhotep again. Imhotep, I-M-H-O-T-P. Imhotep, the genius architect, who built the step pyramid for King Zoser. And actually, he also was a surgeon, physician, many talented person. And he was well known to be the surgeon that probably saved the life of a mother of Zoser after she gave birth to Zoser himself. Zoser, the king of the third dynasty. So the Imhotep was the oldest and the most well-known physician, doctor, physician, surgeon, came from ancient Egypt. Even the Greeks and the Romans decided to deify him later on. I mean, however, he lived in the third dynasty, roughly 2700 BC end, but he was memorized and kept, honored by Roman emperors and Greek kings. We have a carving for him at Komombo Temple that was made in the early Roman. That carving was restored by the Emperor Trajan to show respect to the Egyptian god of medicine.
Yes.
Imhotep was not a god, but the Egyptian considered a god due to his own great achievements to humanity.
So the ancient Egyptians had a god for medicine.
Of course, they had gods for medicine. The main god is Tot, or Tahut, T-H-O-T, who took a shape of an ibis, the bird ibis, which is like cattle ibis. And there is a conclusion that maybe the reason could be that those birds, like the ibis, the egret, the ibis, are just naturally feeding on parasite shells, which host mollusks, and which caused Egypt to have bilharzia later on. So once those birds left in nature to grow in number, they would just feed on the parasites, so the canals would have no stagnant water or less trouble with parasites.
But before we went on air, you told us you wanted to talk about the
That's
lotus
right. Exactly.
flower in this regard.
So we should be really inspired from China, what the Chinese doing now. Chinese are regrowing lotuses in their rivers and canals to keep the water clean and to avoid to have stagnant water around the country.
Yes.
The blue lotus the Egyptians made divine since 3rd dynasty at least. Egyptian Museum have preserved blue lotus. And the ancient Egyptians, especially the upper Egyptians of south of Egypt, where the flood comes from the land, they were the first to suffer from marshes and floods disadvantages, like, for example, leaving much of water where those swamps can catch and allow mosquitoes to grow, and definitely the parasite worms like schistosomiasis, which the causer of the bilharzia. And the death reason which was common for Egyptian citizens under the Greek and Roman dynasty time or periods was mainly because of that kind of worm. So the bilharzia caused a lot of Egyptians to die middle age and even younger, just when they swim in a canal that had no lotus. Lotus was cultivated by the ancient Egyptians in the south of Egypt to kill those parasites. And the oxygen could be exchanged between roots of the lotus and the canal itself. So when the oxygen is extracted in a huge amount, the fish can grow faster and breed, so the nature of the canal or the river becomes cleaner. And therefore the parasites would not tolerate to inhabit in stagnant or static waters.
Yes.
So the China is doing this, and now they're enjoying a bigger amount of fish. I hope one day we return.
I was just going to ask the same question.
I hope one day we
yeah.
return two things. Bring the white ibis, which became rare. What we see today is an egret. The one you call Abu Urdan is not an ibis. It's an egret, cattle egret. The ibis have become extinct a lot in many countries, but as far as I know, South Africa has some of them. If Egypt one day would think or consider to reintroduce the ibis and definitely reintroduce the lotus to its river.
It shouldn't be a problem, I guess. I mean, we're importing basically everything, so it shouldn't be...
At least we get it from China. Why not?
Yeah, why not?
Mr. Kamel, what were the most common diseases that the ancient Egyptians were suffering from?
Well, you know, as Egypt had been always surrounded by Sahara Desert.
Yep.
So the Hamasine winds, the eye sores were common, and Egyptians used kohl, several different kind of kohl. The green they took from malachite stone. They took black form of it out of a form of lead, and then they used them for enhancing vision. I mean, if you're an Egyptian, would work in a farm or carve in a temple or work outdoors, you should prefer the black one. Keep your eyelids safe from the sun and distract the sun rays, and also actually in functions like sunglasses today. I mean, that's the reason the Egyptians had to surround their eyes with that thick black outline, like outliner you could call, with kohl, in order to brighten their vision. If you live in a country that has too much sun and a lot of sands around, the whole thing is shiny.
Yes.
So to enhance vision, you have that black kohl around the eyes. Yes. And probably they use the green one for indoors, where they trust that green can enhance your ability to read. If you're a royal scribe or a scribe that lived in that time, and your job needs reading, that green would around the eyes. We found that around eyes of sculptures of scribes. So the ones are trusted to write for the king the documents.
Okay.
And the job is always indoors. So they had known this. And today you would see someone would sell you a torch for reading or a lantern for reading, and probably green.
Yes. Sir, what were the most famous types of remedies used by the ancient Egyptians to cure various diseases, and if they are used until now, are they used until now, some of
Yes,
them?
of course they realized the honey can cure many things.
Yes.
Honey is generally antibacterial, antiviral.
So it was common during
Was
ancient
common.
Egyptian times.
Honey and dates were used a lot to treat fever. They used the onion to treat headache. They used
So
fenugreek.
they were mainly using natural things, not
yes.
chemicals.
Of course, yes. They would just mix them together in a nice way in a formula they follow. But they use natural ingredients. They don't really...
They did not...
sometimes they powder them, smash them to become soft.
Medicine, yeah.
Medicine. They crush them to become medicine.
But maybe they were relying on natural
we are not, to be honest, we're not informed if they had produced something chemical or not. But most of the papyruses that we had discovered, like the Edwin Smith and Ibers and other ones, they are telling us that they use natural things. Radish, onion, garlic, garlic for testing if a woman could be possible for her to be pregnant or not. And they use the
Really?
that's right. It's a strange thing.
Interesting.
Exactly what they wrote, that they would insert that in the vagina. Then, if a woman breathes and mouth smells garlic, and some doctors they think that could be true. If she smells garlic, means there's no blockage in her body. And they have things that are not common, maybe mentioned, but a lot of people think it. Doctors think today it works well, and also contraceptives were known. So it seems like they used acacia with other materials. The tree, they took its flowers and grounds, and we found remains or information.
Sorry, Mr. Kamel, but we are seeing here many tools, medical
These
tools.
are the surgical instruments where you have, of course, they found a lot of these things in many tombs in ancient Egypt, and we have a very interesting carving for those ones in the Temple of Kamambu. Among them is the forceps to help giving birth to a baby, grab the baby out. Then they had needles, they had forceps.
What about this one?
This is actually the birthing chair. Isis, she's sitting on one of the birthing chairs, give birth to Horus. And the man there, the man with a hunchback or poultices, the man had deformity in his back. And this is actually the papyruses I explained, Edwin Smith. All papyruses, medical papyrus, named after the buyer.
Yeah.
Yes.
So to honor the buyer at that time, back to 1800.
This is him.
This is the expert translated, Prested, Professor
And what
Prested.
is this exactly?
This is one of the beautiful sycamore panels, stela, in the Egyptian Museum of a very famous dentist called Hesira.
Interesting.
Hesira served the kings of the Second Dynasty and also served Zoser, and coexisted when once Imhotep was in charge of Egypt. And this is the detailed stone that has the tracheotomy surgery. Top corner, there's a man to the left, extends his arm to the maximum length, and aiming at just drilling through the throat.
Yes.
So this is, seems to be, some people think it was discovered by luck, or maybe the need created that kind of surgery.
Okay.
And they did not stop practicing since that time. That label, or the label before, was 3000 BC at least. Those are the papyruses, like the medical papyrus of London and others. I have a number of papyrus pictures that brought us information about how they treat diseases. And the most famous among them, I said, Edwin Smith papyrus, which explains in a scientific way how doctors should treat trauma and fractures of skulls. Egyptians had wars with others, and during war, soldier could be killed if they would not save his life and do an immediate surgery.
This is the kahl you were telling us about.
This is these eyes of Horus. They used to defragment them and create the units of weight of the medication
Yes.
So take the pupil, take the eyebrow, and each represents a certain way. They have sensitive scales where you should weigh them on.
Okay.
So like I said, Edwin Smith papyrus treated skulls damage, and they had bone sitting. The Egyptians also had known replacement of limbs. A man had lost his toe, a man lost...
Whole replacement.
Really?
Medial replacement. Maybe because also they thought that person, it's practical to replace it, but also they thought the second life requires those dead to be in the shape that a spirit can recognize.
Yes.
I mean, if a person, normal person has all things perfect and goes second life and without a finger, without a hand, that may mislead the spirit.
What about this picture, sir?
The canopic jars, the jars where they store the organs of the mummy.
Yes.
They thought to eviscerate the organs out of the body. The leaving organs inside the mummy can help the mummy to decompose. So the best thing is take the organs which keeps bacteria out, like intestines and so on, and they keep them in 4 jars like the one I brought in the slide.
Yeah,
those
very
jars have animals'
Yes.
heads.
This is very interesting. Actually, I can't get enough of this. But unfortunately,
Oh, it's not complicated.
Unfortunately, our time is up. But we hope that you can perhaps join us again in another edition of
Thank
the
you.
Breakfast Show, sir, and tell us more about the secrets of the ancient Egyptians, not only in medicine, but other
Other
secrets,
fields.
perhaps.
Thanks a lot.
But for now, I'd like to thank you very much for coming and.
Thank you for allowing me to talk.
Thank you very much, sir. You were in the company of Yasse Kamel and myself, Halam Hamalawi. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. Tomorrow you'll be meeting with another crew of The Breakfast Show. Of course, more interesting topics to be discussed. Bye-bye.